You're listening to Legally Blissed Conversations. This podcast reclaims and rewrites the stories female attorneys have been told about how we should practice law, grow our businesses, treat our clients, treat ourselves, and craft our identities as female attorneys. We'll hear inspiring stories from current and former female attorneys, the ones who question the stories they've been told, the ones who aren't afraid to live boldly and step into their own power. We'll learn from women who define success on their terms. Through lighthearted and curious conversation, we'll unpack the challenges these inspiring female attorneys have already navigated. So join me on this journey. You'll be empowered and ready to rewrite a completely new story about what is possible for you. Well, hey there. I'd like to welcome everyone to Legally Blissed Conversations and a very warm welcome today to Sarah Ouis. Sarah is a recovering in-house counsel turned legal designer and entrepreneur. After 7 years working as an in-house lawyer and a strong interest in legal design and content creation, she's made a career shift by doing two things: an employed role in the legal tech space as a legal design manager, where she cross-collaborates with different functions to make legal stuff better, and making the leap into entrepreneurship. She excels at transforming legal content into user-friendly and innovative materials. Welcome again, Sarah. I am so happy to get to hang out with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Susie.
Yeah, so you have kind of an unconventional career right now, but I want us to go back just a couple of years to Sarah going to law school. What made you decide to go to law school?
I think on that note, it won't be very unconventional, because I think most people, when you are a teenager and you kind of follow an educational route based on whatever your parents tell you to do and whatever the society dictates you to do. And so really my choices back then were really driven by, family pressure, or, you have to become a doctor or a lawyer to make it in life. Then the society, obviously, going to law school and listening to those professors, again, advising going to law school because there is so many things you can do with the law degree. And on that note, I think they were right. But yeah, it was very much following, whatever people asked me to do. And then I think initially I always wanted to work with people. That's the one thing, I'm a people person, and I thought, okay, I really want to work with people. I had heard of human resources, I had heard of HR without really knowing what it was, but I assumed that it would be working with people. And I thought, law school is a safe path based on what I was told. And I like working with people, so maybe HR could be a good route, but let's not specialize too early. Let's go to law school, maybe dive into employment a little bit, and then maybe do the shift from law to human resources. So that's just how it all came up.
Yeah. So how was your law school experience? Did you enjoy it?
Oh no, that was terrible.
Okay. So it's really funny because I had a podcast recording yesterday with someone who was like, "Oh my God, I loved law school." Right. And I'm kind of like you, right? Like I did not enjoy my law school experience. So it's fascinating that people have such different, feelings about their experience. What was it that you just didn't like about it?
The very theoretical aspect of it. It wasn't practical. I think I think the first 2 years, I would say, it was really, like about legal principles. And yes, obviously it takes time to master the legal reasoning. But it was done in such a way that was just dull and boring and unnecessary, really. Like too much information, like too, like I remember, going through the constitutional law and those things, and I was like, who cares? Like I don't want to work in that field. Like, why are we just bombarding with information? And I guess it's really kind of slapped me in the face. And probably what really, without knowing, it kind of drove the rest of my career, because I was always kind of a bit of a rebel, and kind of against the tradition of the legal industry in that sense, against information overload, and against anything that is unnecessary and core to what people want and need. And it all started from there, from my law school experience. The last 3 years, because I qualified in France, were more interesting, because I pursued a very particular degree, really focused on the in-house legal profession, and that's where we had much more practical workshops. I did an apprenticeship the last year, so I worked in-house for a year. So I had a lot of work experience in-house, and that really was eye-opening for me. That's really where I started to see the relationship between law and business, and how it all translates. But yeah, that was my experience.
I think it's interesting because I noticed your face physically changed when you started talking about your in-house experience versus being in law school.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Okay, so I want to get into this because I think this is really interesting. You know, you went to law school kind of like there was some of that societal pressure, maybe some family pressure to go to law school. But when you were there, you realized, okay, we are just being fed a bunch of information that's not super practical for like everyday life, right? And you probably didn't even, I mean, maybe you realized it even in the moment, but I'm sure you realized it more when you went in-house. At what point were you like, I want to do something different here? Like you said that you kind of wanted to buck the system, you wanted to rebel. Like when was that, where was that turning point in your practice?
It was when I started to work in-house, because I think in law school, again, not only you are fed with unnecessary information, you are also being pictured a very different vision of what the working life looks like for a lawyer. So you're kind of at the law school stage, you're kind of praised, or you are joining a profession of prestige, and you're kind of being made, you're kind of being, yeah, you kind of feel special, really, or becoming a lawyer, and like you have this a strong attachment to the title and the prestige that comes with it. But I really got slapped in the face when I started to work in-house, because really that's where I realized how remote this prestige and this perception was from the day-to-day life of an in-house lawyer. Because when you work in-house, it's not like when you are in a law firm. Like you're just another colleague, part of the organization. You're being asked to do A, B, and C, and that's how it's going to be. And no one really cares much about your opinion. And also legal departments, the ones I guess I've experienced, or even like when networking with other people, they do suffer from a very poor reputation. The deal breakers, the no sayers. So that's really where this kind of rebellion thing that I had kind of started to grow as well, because I was like, no, I mean, I just can't work this way. There has to be a better way.
Okay, so let's talk about there has to be a better way. And I have a feeling this is kind of where that intersection of design and law arises for you. So let's talk about that. What really prompted you to think I can make like legal contracts better, right? Like we don't have to have so much superfluous language. We can make this user friendly, and dare I say it, some of your contracts look kind of fun. Like I've seen them. I'm like, these look really cool. So what really prompted that? And like, what made you think I can make contracts accessible and almost like aesthetically pleasing?
So that came a lot later in my career, because I think the first few years, obviously, you need experience in order to do that. You need a sound understanding of the law and the intricacies of it and the subtlety of the words. And so the first few years were really me learning how to be a lawyer in real life and how to be a practical lawyer working in-house, because again, that's very different from being in a law firm. So the first few years, I was just applying whatever I was told to do, and and I guess I had a really good experience with that, because obviously my managers were like, you do not delay, be practical, be straight to the point. So I resonated with that message. But I couldn't at the time really come up with ideas of my own, because I needed to roll my own um really roll my own experience and learn from it. So, and then what happened was, so when I then changed jobs, and I've become a sole counsel. So I jumped from being an in-house lawyer as part of a legal team, learning from others, so being a baby lawyer in that mold, or to becoming a sole counsel in a very fast-growing environment where nothing was done. Like, I had to do everything from scratch, and that really started to mold me in a different way, because I had to leverage what I had always learned, or what I've learned so far, and repurpose it to do my own thing in a brand new environment, where everything is obviously needs to be done from scratch. So that's really where this creativity started to grow, to develop, I guess, and this is where I had a lot more flexibility and freedom to be more experimental, and with that came the confidence that actually, yes, this is what I've learned, but is there a better way? And that's really where I started slowly to incorporate visualization in training materials, doing infographics, so problem solving through design. That's really where it really started, and I got better at it, obviously, with experience and experiment and practice, until I started to post those things on social media, and people started to reach out.
So why is design important to you? And how do you see it kind of intersecting with legal practice?
I think it is important because, again, the people we are serving aren't legal professionals, and they shouldn't have to be. And the practice of law has always been very lawyer centric, even though the end users, most of the time aren't really lawyers. I mean, apart from, I guess, a situation where law firms work with in-house legal teams, but even then, the end goal is always to serve the wider business. So even though there's obviously the middleman, the legal department doing all the legwork of translation, really that shouldn't be. Like, there has to be the big picture understanding that legal services on their own aren't really anything if not for the people they are designed to serve. So, and they are designed to serve them. So I think that's really where it came from. I've just noticed a lack of user centricity, which led to frustrations as well, because people don't understand lawyers. Lawyers have a bad reputation, but it's only because we haven't really experienced anything different. And I found in design a really powerful, impactful way of addressing that issue.
How has your design been received by the legal community at large? And I'm going to say, like, in-house attorneys versus big law firm attorneys.
It's a very interesting mix. I've had all sorts. I would say, so people with a similar background, so in-house counsel, they really get it, because they are facing similar challenges, so they kind of understand where this comes from, and how this could be beneficial for a population of non-legal savvy users. On the law firm side, again, I've had really good feedback, but you always have this, I guess, across the profession, but I've definitely received the almost the opposite reaction to it, as in, or like, our profession, or our knowledge is so precious and technical, and how dare you just make a pizza out of a privacy policy. This is unacceptable type of reaction, almost an allergic reaction to that practice. So you kind of have both mixed feelings, but I would probably say that in terms of proportion, the people who welcome that initiative are a lot bigger than those who just don't get it.
That's awesome. And I think that there's some people that get it, and then the people that don't really get it just are never going to get it, right? They're
Yeah.
probably not going to be able to do anything to really convince them otherwise. So right now, I'm curious, who is your ideal client that you work with?
So I think I'm quite lucky because my ideal clients are actually the people I work with. But they are forward-thinking, legal departments, law firms, legal service providers such as legal operation firms, and what they all have in common is a strong desire to problem solve and an openness to be experimental and try. And I'm quite aware that it's never going to be the vast majority of the ecosystem of the legal industry, but it's enough for me to make a living out of it. So
That's good, right?
I want to
have you had any feedback from your clients regarding the receptivity of their clients? Right, like just the kind of the the real end user of these, right? People who are not lawyers.
Yeah, I do, because obviously, something that I guess doesn't really show through, because really what I post are the deliverables, but there is a lot of research that goes behind it. And let's designing materials for a sales team is going to be very different from designing materials for procurement or finance, for example. So yeah, but like generally speaking, business people do welcome this type of initiative, because it's, and again, it's not just those particular projects, it's generally speaking, they value the fact that they have a legal department or even a law firm serving their customers, who really try to push boundaries, who really try to do things better, faster, more efficiently, who really try to remove the bottlenecks. So what I do is a very small portion of a bigger drive to change. And usually the clients I work with are all up for technology, digitization. Like they have so many things going on at the same time, and design is a very small portion of a big vision that they want to execute on. And usually it's for the benefit of business users. So they're quite happy.
That's awesome. So the legal design, like you would consider this a subset of legal tech, right?
So they kind of work alongside. I would say that legal design really comes from design thinking, which is a methodology around problem solving through the human lenses. And you need to have a design thinking approach or human-centered approach to problem solving when you develop technology, because at the end of the day, those humans are going to interact with the product. So you have to understand what their pain points are in the first place. What are the things that they want solving? What are their objectives, their aspirations, their challenges? So you need to have this human-centered approach to develop good technology. So I would say that they definitely work together. The things that I do more particularly would kind of address all the issues that technology doesn't really solve. So technology is great when it comes to simplifying processes, scaling processes as well, removing some very mundane manual tasks. But the things that I do are more to do with the actual materials, so how we can make them better, more understandable, easier to read it and action. So they kind of, I guess, complete one another. But they are just things that technology can solve on its own, and that's really where I come in.
So you probably work with a lot of people who, in a complementary capacity, who are in legal tech. What is that like, and what is that like in particular, being a female in that space? Because I'm sure there's not a lot of us.
So surprisingly enough, in legal technology, because I'm quite blessed to have a legal tech role as well, and there are quite a lot of women, at least in the contract life cycle management space, which is where I am at the moment. But there are quite a lot of women. I mean, I haven't done the ratio, and I would probably assume that men are still obviously in majority, but they are women part of the legal innovation space in general, which is wonderful. So you have women in design, you have women in legal operations, a lot of women. And I think in terms of legal innovators, I probably know almost more women than men, which is quite interesting. So women are really pushing boundaries, and it's wonderful to see. And the intersection between technology, design, and operation is amazing, because you can see like how they, like all of those disciplines combined can really do wonderful results on a law firm or a legal department processes, really.
Let's take a quick pause for a message from my sponsor, Prominent Practice.
Are you thinking about a career transition from big law or partnership to a solo practice, selling your practice, or maybe you're launching a project unrelated to law? Whatever the reason for your transition, you'll need support along the way. Enter Prominent Practice, an executive consulting and marketing firm specializing in branding, positioning, and reputation management for transitioning attorneys. Founded by a female entrepreneur who spent a decade building smart digital platforms for thought leaders before pivoting to focus on high-end service providers who were preparing for successions, mergers, and acquisition events in their businesses. If you're thinking about making a big business move, don't risk losing the ability to leverage the reputation you've spent your career building. Let Prominent Practice be your guide. Visit prominentpractice.com/blissed for an exclusive introduction.
Where do you get your inspiration for the work that you do?
So I would say designers.
Other designers?
Designers, because I mean, this is what they do for a living, and they are just, yeah, I mean, I just love looking at inspirations. And before really getting into design, I wasn't into Pinterest, and now Pinterest is, something that I just look at all the time. And so I love, and this is really where I get my inspiration from: the world of designers, the world of marketing as well, because I do produce a lot of content on social media. So I love looking at what other creators are doing, especially marketing creators and design creators. Very little from the legal industry. Interestingly enough, that's not where my inspiration comes from.
No, probably not. So where do you see the future of design and legal going? I mean, I feel like you're kind of at the cutting edge of this. Where do you see it going in the future?
It's very interesting, because I don't know if it will ever become mainstream. And maybe had you asked me that question a year ago, I would have been a lot more optimistic. But I know it is becoming like more trendy as a topic, people talking a lot about it, but whether people will really start adopting it as part of, the day-to-day practice of law is a big question mark. I kind of feel that it's probably too soon to tell. I'm hoping that it's going to become more mainstream, and that the day-to-day change will drive changes in the legal education itself, so that the next generation of legal professionals can be trained differently. But I kind of feel that because everything takes just so much time in the legal industry to change, I kind of feel that maybe it's always going to be a niche within a fairly traditional practice.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah. The legal industry is very slow to change, right?
Very, very slow. But I guess maybe that this was the case for legal technology, I guess, 10 years ago, isn't it? And now it's
Right.
becoming much more mainstream, and we have very solid legal technology actors in the space, and more acquisitions going on, and maybe we have to give it another 10 years before it becomes something mainstream. But at the moment, I'm very kind of have mixed feelings around it. I don't know.
Ask you again in 6 months, and maybe you'll be more optimistic about it, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, technology changes quickly, things change quickly, but the legal industry is very slow to uptake anything. So, but who knows? Maybe that also will change. We'll see.
We'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell. So what is like when you kind of look at the overall arching problems in the legal industry, what problems do you see? Like what would you love to see kind of evolve or change about the practice of law?
More experiments, I would say. I think that people just overthink everything they do in our profession, which I guess, yes, we aren't really a profession of creatives, right? Because some of the decisions that we make can affect people's lives and outcomes, and I get that, but just because you have to risk manage the legal outcomes doesn't mean that you should apply the same thinking to the way you deliver those services and the way you deliver those outcomes and achieve them. So I think I wish for the industry to be a lot more experimental, a lot more open to try, technology designs, all the disciplines that may not replace what we are doing, but complement it and make it better. So that's really my wish for the industry, a much more iterative, experimental mindset, an openness to learn as well, and upskill, because that's another issue that I see a lot. Legal professionals thinking that their knowledge of the law will shield them from anything that could possibly go wrong, and all the changes that happen in a society. That is not true. Legal information used to be a highly valuable thing, and now it's a commodity that can be searchable on Google at the press of a button. So it's really important, I think, to have this open mind, being open to learn, change, iterate, and being user-focused, being client-focused.
In ways that are different and unique, right? Like lawyers in general need to kind of think outside the box when it comes to delivering their materials. I'm curious, what is next for you in your career with legal design and just in general?
So I think I found one of my sweet spot is with social media. So I do train lawyers on mastering visual communication on social media for their practice area, and that is something that is working really well. Still, you have to convince people, and there's a lot of obviously legwork behind it. But I've had my few early adopters already. I've had really good successes for them. They are just thriving on especially on LinkedIn for their practice area, and that's something I really want to expand on and keep on empowering lawyers with those skills. Legal design wise, it's a bit more, I don't know what the market needs and wants. Surprisingly, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of discussions around it, but when it comes to selling it, it's very different. So I'm yet to see where is it in legal design, where will I have the most impact? Is it in training people, in upskilling? Is it in the delivery of certain legal design services? I'm not too sure. So I'm doing both at the moment. I do workshops and I do services for law firms and legal teams, but I don't know yet. It's very early, and again, something that we probably need a part 2 on.
We can do that, and that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be quite interesting to listen back to the conversation, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want to start kind of doing that when I roll out future seasons. So okay, I have a couple questions if we have just a few more minutes, if you don't mind. This was a while back. I had seen a tweet from you because I stalk you on Twitter, and I remember you had said you had created a piece of content for someone, and I remember like you had posted something about like your reaction to it. Do you remember that do you remember that tweet? I wish I should have pulled the exact language from it, but I just remember like your response was you were so happy. Like it was someone that you had impacted with your with some content that you created, and I thought that was such a cool. You're remembering now, aren't you? Yeah. Okay.
Is this someone who changed her career?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, so I had posted, and it's my most popular piece of content on LinkedIn as well, which I genuinely don't understand how this blew up, but that's just the way
one never knows. One never knows why certain things
never. It was genuinely something I did in an hour, like like I was in the in the tube/subway at the time. Like, it was just something, so like I just wanted to get something out quickly, and yeah, that's the beauty, I guess, of social. You never know what's gonna work. So I did a legal career, what I call the legal career iceberg, where on the top of the iceberg is what do you think, what people think they can do with the law degree and with all the traditional roles, prosecutor and, partner in a law firm, etc. And the reality and the fact that there are so many things, so many possibilities for people holding a law degree. And one of them was legal, I think I put legal operation and I put legal technology in there as well. So anyway, this person basically messaged me and said, I've come across this iceberg of yours, and it got me and I was very miserable. I mean, I've been a lawyer for years, and I was very miserable in my practice of law, and I just felt stuck because I didn't know what to do. And I came across your iceberg, which showed it was either legal operation or legal tech, one of the two. And she started to research it, and she started to see what roles would be available in those fields, and it allowed her to pivot. And she said, I've pivoted a few months ago, and I'm so happy, and I'm so glad I came across this post because it changed the rest of my career and for the better. And that really, really moved me. Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I will find that link to LinkedIn or to your iceberg, and
yes,
I'll put it in the show notes so people could take a look at what you're talking about. And that's exactly what it was. I should have pulled that earlier, but I just remember that you were talking about it, and I could tell that you were so positively impacted because this design that you had created really resonated with someone. And if you would have just written something, like if you would have had just a text blog post, it might not have resonated the same way. They may not have ever read it. And that's kind of the beauty of design and images, that we can oftentimes interpret a lot of information fairly quickly from images or things that are just properly designed, right? Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I remember that, and it just really resonated with me too.
Oh yeah, and it kind of reminds the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, isn't it?
Right.
The impact you can have with the power of visualization, and that's why I love visualization so much. And I'm very surprised that in an industry like legal, where everything is so technical and so heavy, we haven't just thought of using visualization a lot earlier. And again, that's because we just think that our practice is so precious that we can't damage it with other mediums, or and text has to be the norm. It doesn't need to be this way. We can use videos, we can use comics, we can use infographics, we can use audio for that matter. Like we just can use so many things that other industries are leveraging.
Yeah. So, where can people see some of your designs, Sarah, and follow you and learn more about you?
LinkedIn, I would say. The number one place is LinkedIn, Sarah Ouis. And I'm also on Twitter, Low But How, and I'm on Instagram as well,
Right.
Designing Legal.
So I will connect with these. Your LinkedIn is Sarah Ouis, and I'll put the LinkedIn in the show notes. And Instagram is Twitter is Law But How.
Yeah.
And then your Instagram is what?
Designing Legal.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Sarah, for sharing some of your personal journey. It was absolutely fascinating. I'm really excited to see where legal design goes in the next few years. We'll see if the legal industry actually actively takes it up.
We'll see.
It'll be interesting. Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Oh, thank you so much, Susie. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Legally Blissed Conversations. If you love this episode and you want to hang out with other inspiring and light gold female attorneys, be sure to join the Legally Blissed community at legallyblissed.com. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Susie Hickson. See you next time.